I thought I knew what betrayal felt like until that day in court when the surprise witness walked in. My wife's face turned ghost white. Her lawyer froze mid-sentence. And in that moment, 15 years of marriage collapsed like a house built on quicksand. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For 15 years, I believed my marriage to Danielle was rock solid. We met when I was 28, working construction jobs that barely paid the bills. She was this warm, confident nurse who somehow saw potential in me when nobody else did. "You're going to build something amazing someday," she'd tell me, her eyes bright with certainty. And I did. Started my own contracting business, bought us a modest 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Every anniversary, she'd post those perfect couple photos online with captions like "My Rock, My Forever," or 15 years and still my everything. Friends would comment about how lucky we were, how rare it was to find what we had. I believed every word of it. The first changes were so small, I almost missed them. Her phone suddenly always face down, new passwords on her laptop. Hospital policy, she claimed, late shifts that never showed up on the schedule I could see online. A different perfume, clothes I didn't recognize. "You're working too hard," she'd say whenever I asked questions. "The hospital's crazy busy. You know how it is." And I did know. Healthcare's demanding. So I backed off, made dinner on those late nights, ran extra baths, tried to be understanding, but there's this feeling that lives in your gut when something isn't right. A quiet alarm that keeps ringing louder until you can't ignore it anymore. I remember the night everything changed. I was finishing up paperwork for a kitchen renovation job. It was late, maybe 11:30. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Check your wife's messages with someone named Kay." "You deserve to know. I'm sorry." Just that. Nothing else. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at that message, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Part of me wanted to delete it, pretend I never saw it, because once you know something, you can't unknow it. But I've never been good at lying to myself. When Danielle came home that night, I was sitting in the dark of our living room. She flipped on the light, jumped a little when she saw me. "God, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" I didn't answer right away, just watched her face, searching for the woman I thought I knew. "Who's Kay?" I finally asked. The way her smile vanished told me everything I needed to know. "Kay is just a co-worker," she said, but her voice had that high pitch it gets when she's lying. Same voice she used when claiming she forgot to invite my mother to her birthday dinner last year. "Show me your phone." "What? No, I'm not showing you my phone because some random text made you paranoid." But I'd already seen enough. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen counter where she'd left it before her late shift. I turned the screen toward her. "Kurt Wallace, your supervisor, the one you said was just a mentor." The messages were still open, hundreds of them. Plans for weekend getaways when I thought she was at nursing conferences, inside jokes about how clueless I was, photos I'll never be able to erase from my memory. "He still thinks you're his loyal nurse wife. Bless his heart." That's what Kurt had written, and Danielle had replied with a laughing emoji. A laughing emoji. 15 years reduced to a joke. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered, but her eyes darted around the room, looking anywhere but at me. "How long?" "Aaron, please." "How long?" She sank into a chair. 8 months. But it wasn't serious at first, just talking. 8 months. While I was renovating our bathroom as a surprise for our anniversary, while I was helping her mother move into assisted living, while I was planning our future. "I want you out," I said quietly. "Tonight. This is my house, too. You can't just... The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. You insisted on it, remember? Because your credit was bad from medical school." Another lie, I realized. Everything was a lie. She left that night with a single suitcase, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Our wedding photo. The glass cracked right between us. I didn't know then that she'd already hired a lawyer, didn't know she'd been planning her exit strategy for months. 3 days later, I was served divorce papers claiming I was verbally abusive and controlling. Me, the guy who'd spent 15 years walking on eggshells to keep her happy. That night, I called the only lawyer I knew, Mr. Collins, an old man who'd helped with my business contracts. His voice was calm, steady. "The truth always finds its way to the surface," he told me. "Just give me time." I had no idea how right he would be. The weeks after Danielle moved out felt like walking through fog. I couldn't sleep. Food tasted like nothing. Friends called, but I let everything go to voicemail. How do you tell people your wife wasn't who you thought she was for 15 years? If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, hit that like button, that hollow feeling in your chest. I lived with it for months. Mr. Collins became my anchor. While Danielle's lawyer sent threatening letters demanding half of everything I'd built, he stayed calm. "She's playing a game," he explained during our second meeting. "The abuse allegations are strategic. If she can paint herself as a victim, the court might overlook her infidelity." "But there was no abuse," I said, my voice breaking. "I never even raised my voice." He nodded, sliding a notebook across his desk. "Document everything, every text, every email, every time she takes something from the house, every penny from joint accounts. Start today." That notebook became my lifeline. While my heart was shattering, my hand was writing. Dates, times, amounts. It gave me purpose when nothing else made sense. Meanwhile, Danielle moved in with Kurt. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. She'd show up at the house when I was at work, taking things that weren't hers. The vintage watch my grandfather left me, photo albums from my childhood, even my tools. Each time, I added another entry to the notebook. "Stay boring," Mr. Collins advised. "Don't react. Don't engage. Let her think she's winning." So I became invisible. When we passed each other collecting mail, I said nothing. When she called to demand more money, I referred her to my lawyer. When mutual friends asked what happened, I simply said, "We grew apart." But inside, I was building something she couldn't see. One rainy Tuesday, about 2 months after Danielle left, Mr. Collins called me into his office. His desk was covered with bank statements and printed emails. "Did you know about these transfers?" he asked, pointing to a series of withdrawals from our joint savings account. Small amounts. 200 here, 300 there, always just under $500. The threshold that would trigger a notification to my phone. "No," I said, feeling sick. "When did these start?" "About a year ago, always on Fridays, always to the same account number." A year, before the affair even started, or at least before I knew about it. "There's more," Mr. Collins said, sliding another paper toward me. Your wife and Mr. Wallace both serve on the hospital's charity committee, the one that raises money for children's cancer treatment." I nodded. Danielle had used those committee meetings as cover for their affair. "The hospital's financial officer contacted me yesterday. There are discrepancies in the accounts. Money missing, not huge amounts, but enough to raise questions." My stomach dropped. "You think they were stealing from sick kids?" He didn't answer directly, just tapped his pen against another document. "The account number matches the one receiving transfers from your joint savings." I felt the room tilt. Cheating was one thing, but this was something else entirely. "What do we do?" I asked. "Nothing," he said, surprising me. "We wait. Let them keep digging their hole deeper." Over the next few weeks, Danielle became bolder. She started showing up to preliminary court hearings with Kurt, holding hands, whispering together. Her lawyer argued that I should move out of our house while the divorce proceeded, that I should pay her temporary support, all while I sat quietly, watching, waiting. What they didn't know was that Mr. Collins had already contacted Kurt's wife, Michelle, and Michelle had her own notebook. The morning of our first major court hearing, I woke up at 4 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep. My stomach was in knots. I'd never been good at public speaking, and the thought of sitting in that courtroom while Danielle's lawyer painted me as some kind of monster made me physically sick. "Wear your Navy suit," Mr. Collins had instructed the day before. "No flashy tie. Look respectable but not wealthy." I followed his advice, choosing a tie my father had given me years ago. Plain blue, nothing special. As I knotted it in the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. Thinner, grayer, eyes that had seen too much. The courthouse was an old brick building downtown. As I walked up the steps, I spotted Danielle and Kurt waiting near the entrance. She wore a cream-colored dress that made her look innocent, almost angelic. Kurt stood close behind her, hand on her lower back. They were laughing about something. I looked away and kept walking. Inside, the courtroom smelled like furniture polish and anxiety. I sat beside Mr. Collins, who was arranging papers with the calm precision of a surgeon. Across the aisle, Danielle's lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Ms. Gray, whispered urgently to her client. When the judge entered, everyone stood. Judge Martinez was a small woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She didn't smile as she took her seat. "Daniels versus Daniels," she announced, glancing at the file. "Petition for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences and alleged abuse." Ms. Gray stood first. Her voice filled the room, confident and clear. "Your Honor, my client has suffered years of controlling behavior and verbal intimidation from her husband. She finally found the courage to leave when his behavior became increasingly unpredictable. We're asking for exclusive use of the marital home, temporary spousal support, and a fair division of assets." I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Every word was a lie. When it was our turn, Mr. Collins rose slowly. He didn't raise his voice or make dramatic gestures like Ms. Gray. He didn't need to. "Your Honor, we contest these allegations completely. Mr. Daniels has documentation showing that Mrs. Daniels left the marriage to pursue a relationship with her supervisor, Kurt Wallace. We have evidence of infidelity going back at least 8 months. The judge nodded, making notes. "Anything else, Mr. Collins?" He paused, adjusting his glasses. "Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call one more witness." Danielle shifted in her seat. Even Ms. Gray looked confused. Then the courtroom door opened. The woman who walked in was tall and elegant, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a simple gray dress and carried a thick manila folder. I'd never seen her before, but I knew immediately who she was. Michelle Wallace, Kurt's wife. The reaction was instant. Kurt went completely still, like a deer caught in headlights. Danielle's mouth fell open, her face draining of color. She grabbed Ms. Gray's arm, whispering frantically. The judge noticed too. "Counsel, approach the bench," she ordered. While the lawyers huddled with Judge Martinez, I watched Michelle take a seat in the back row. She sat perfectly straight, eyes fixed forward, clutching that folder like it contained state secrets. After a heated discussion, the judge nodded. "I'll allow the witness." Mr. Collins returned to our table, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Be ready," he whispered. Michelle took the stand, swore to tell the truth, and stated her name for the record. "Mrs. Wallace," Mr. Collins began gently, "can you tell the court your relationship to Kurt Wallace?" "He's my husband of 12 years, she replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "And when did you become aware that your husband was having an affair with Mrs. Daniels?" Ms. Gray jumped up. "Objection. This is irrelevant to the divorce proceedings." "Your Honor," Mr. Collins countered, "Mrs. Daniels has made serious allegations against my client. The nature of her departure from the marriage speaks directly to her credibility." The judge considered this. "I'll allow it. The witness may answer." Michelle took a deep breath. "I discovered their affair 6 months ago. Text messages, hotel receipts, photos." She opened the folder. "But that's not why I'm here today." The courtroom went completely silent. Even the court reporter paused, fingers hovering above her machine. 3 months ago, I found financial documents in my husband's home office. Records of money transfers from the hospital's children's cancer charity to a private account. Gasps rippled through the room. Kurt sank lower in his seat. "The account belonged to both my husband and Mrs. Daniels. They've been taking small amounts, 500 here, 1,000 there, for over a year. Nearly $40,000 in total." Ms. Gray was on her feet again. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. These are criminal allegations with no foundation." But Michelle wasn't finished. She pulled out more papers. "I also have records showing Mrs. Daniels transferring money from her joint account with Mr. Daniels to this same private account. And I have a recording of my husband and Mrs. Raw Daniels discussing who would take the fall if anyone discovered the missing charity funds." The judge's expression hardened. "Do you have this recording with you, Mrs. Wallace?" Michelle nodded and pulled out a small digital recorder. As she pressed play, I watched Danielle's face crumple. The voice that filled the courtroom was unmistakably hers. "If anyone asks questions, we'll say you authorized everything as committee chair. I'll back you up. No one will check that closely. It's just a small-town hospital charity." Kurt's voice followed. "And if they do?" Danielle's laugh was cold. "Then we blame accounting errors. Worst case, you take the heat. You're the supervisor. I'm just a nurse following orders." I felt sick. This woman, this stranger, had been my wife for 15 years. The judge's gavel came down hard. "Court is adjourned until tomorrow, and Mrs. Daniels, don't leave town." The courtroom erupted into chaos after the recording stopped. Ms. Gray demanded a recess, practically dragging Danielle out the side door. Kurt sat frozen, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. And me? I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I'd just heard. My wife hadn't just cheated. She'd stolen, she'd plotted. She'd been willing to let someone else take the blame. When court reconvened an hour later, Michelle returned to the stand with more evidence. Hotel receipts showing Kurt and Danielle checked in as Mr. and Mrs. Smith during weekends when Danielle told me she was at nursing conferences. Credit card statements showing dinners and gifts charged to the charity's account. Email exchanges planning their future together, a future that depended on taking half of everything I'd built. "We found this in Mrs. Daniels' email," Michelle said, holding up a printed message. "It's a consultation with another lawyer from before she filed for divorce." Mr. Collins took the paper and handed it to the judge. I caught a glimpse of the highlighted section. If abuse allegations are credible, asset division could be more favorable regardless of infidelity. The judge read it silently, her expression darkening. She looked directly at Danielle, who was now visibly trembling. "Mrs. Daniels, are you aware that making false allegations of abuse is a serious matter?" Danielle's lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, my client stands by her statements." But the damage was done. The judge ordered all financial records frozen and announced she was referring the charity fund information to the district attorney's office for investigation. What happened next still plays in my mind like a movie scene. The judge looked at Michelle and asked a simple question. "Mrs. Wallace, why did you come forward today?" Michelle's composure finally cracked. "Because two people I trusted betrayed not just me, but sick children who needed that money, and because Mr. Daniels deserves the truth." She turned toward me, our eyes meeting for the first time. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this." In that moment, I felt something unexpected, not satisfaction or vindication, but a strange kind of peace. The truth was finally out, ugly as it was. The judge's voice cut through my thoughts. "Court is adjourned. We'll reconvene after the DA's preliminary investigation." As everyone stood, I watched Danielle's perfect mask completely shatter. Outside the courtroom, Danielle cornered me in the hallway. Her makeup was smeared, her carefully styled hair falling loose around her face. She looked nothing like the confident woman who'd walked in hours earlier. "Aaron, please," she begged, grabbing my arm. "You have to help me. Tell them I never stole anything. Tell them it's all a misunderstanding." I gently removed her hand. "Like you told them I was abusive?" Her eyes darted around frantically. Kurt was nowhere to be seen. He'd bolted the moment court adjourned. "That was my lawyer's idea. I never wanted to say those things." "But you did say them. You were willing to destroy my reputation, my business, my life." "I made a mistake." People make mistakes. A mistake, like forgetting an anniversary or burning dinner, not like stealing from cancer patients or framing your husband for abuse. "Where's Kurt?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Her face crumpled. "He won't answer my calls. His office says he's taken a leave of absence." Of course, the moment things got tough, he disappeared. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Mr. Collins appeared at my side. "Aaron, we should go. Mrs. Daniels, I suggest you speak with your attorney." As we walked away, I heard her sob. The sound followed me down the hallway, but I didn't look back. In the parking lot, a woman called my name. Michelle Wallace stood by her car, looking exhausted. "I wanted to thank you," I said, extending my hand. She shook it firmly. "Don't thank me. I didn't do it for you. I know." But still, we stood there awkwardly, two strangers connected by betrayal. Finally, she spoke again. "Did you suspect? About the money, I mean." I shook my head. "I knew about the affair. The rest?" I gestured helplessly. "Me too. It's strange, isn't it? Living with someone for years and never really knowing them." The truth of that hit me hard. I'd shared a bed, a home, a life with Danielle, and she'd been a stranger all along. "What will you do now?" I asked. Michelle's smile was sad, but determined. "File for divorce. Move closer to my sister in Colorado. Start over." She paused. "You?" I hadn't thought that far ahead. For months, I'd been focused on surviving each day, each court appearance. The idea of a future beyond this mess seemed impossible. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but for the first time, I think I might be okay." As she drove away, I realized something important. Danielle hadn't just lost me. She'd lost everything, and somehow that didn't feel like victory. It felt like waste. 2 months passed before I heard anything official about the charity fund investigation. Life fell into a strange holding pattern. I worked, came home to an empty house, and waited. The divorce proceedings were on hold pending the outcome of the financial investigation. During those weeks, I threw myself into my contracting business. 12-hour days, weekend projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. My crew noticed but didn't ask questions. They just worked alongside me, a silent support system I hadn't realized I needed. Then one Tuesday morning, Mr. Collins called. "The DA's office finished their preliminary investigation," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "They're pressing charges against both Danielle and Kurt, embezzlement, fraud, falsifying records." I sat down hard on my office chair. What happens now? They'll be arraigned next week. But that's not all. The hospital board met yesterday. Kurt's been terminated, and Danielle... He paused, and I could hear papers shuffling. "Danielle's nursing license is under review. The board has suspended her pending the outcome of the criminal case." I closed my eyes, trying to process it all. The woman I'd married was facing criminal charges. Could possibly go to jail. Might never work as a nurse again. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. "There's one more thing," Mr. Collins added. "The judge in your divorce case has reviewed the evidence. She's issued an adverse credibility finding against Danielle." What does that mean? It means the court no longer finds her testimony reliable. Her abuse allegations have been dismissed. And Aaron, his voice softened, it means we've won. Won? Such a strange word for the end of a 15-year marriage. That night, I sat on my back porch with a beer, watching the sunset. For the first time in months, I could breathe without that weight on my chest. The day of the final divorce hearing arrived with unexpected calm. I'd imagined I'd be nervous, but as I put on my suit that morning, I felt only a quiet certainty. Whatever happened today, I would survive it. Comment below what you would have done in my position. Would you have shown mercy or pushed for everything you deserved? The courtroom was less crowded this time. No spectators, just the essential players in our drama. Danielle sat with Ms. Gray, both looking subdued. Danielle had lost weight, her clothes hanging loosely on her frame. The confident glow she once carried was gone, replaced by a dull resignation. Judge Martinez called the court to order and got straight to business. After reviewing all evidence and considering the pending criminal charges against Mrs. Daniels, I'm prepared to rule on the division of assets in this divorce. She adjusted her glasses and continued. The marital home will remain with Mr. Daniels, as will his contracting business and all associated assets. Mrs. Daniels will retain her personal property, her vehicle, and her retirement account. Ms. Gray started to object, but the judge held up her hand. Given the circumstances, including Mrs. Daniels' breach of fiduciary duty to the marriage and the false allegations made against Mr. Daniels, I find this division equitable. It was over, just like that. 15 years of marriage dissolved in less than 15 minutes. As the judge gathered her papers, Danielle suddenly stood. "Your Honor, may I say something?" Judge Martinez hesitated, then nodded. Danielle turned toward me, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. "I'm sorry, Aaron, not just for the affair or the money. I'm sorry for who I became. You deserved better." The courtroom fell silent. Everyone waited for my response. What could I possibly say? That I forgave her? That I hated her? Neither felt true anymore. "I hope you find peace," I finally said, "because I already have." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was the closest thing to closure I could offer. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Collins shook my hand firmly. "It's done. The papers will be finalized in 30 days. I nodded, looking up at the clear blue sky. "What happens to her now?" "The criminal case will proceed, but that's not your concern anymore." He was right. For the first time in almost a year, Danielle's problems weren't mine to worry about. As I walked to my truck, I felt the weight of my wedding ring in my pocket. I'd taken it off months ago, but couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. Now, passing a trash can, I paused, then kept walking. Some lessons you keep, even after the pain fades. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I drove past the hospital where Danielle used to work. I hadn't meant to. It was just the fastest route to my new job site. But seeing the building brought everything rushing back. Not the anger anymore, just a dull ache like an old injury that flares up in bad weather. The criminal case had concluded with a plea deal. Danielle and Kurt both avoided jail time, but received probation, community service, and were ordered to pay back every penny they'd taken. The local paper ran a small article about it. I didn't read past the headline. My business was thriving despite everything. Word had gotten around town about my situation, and somehow that translated into more clients, not fewer. People would awkwardly mention they'd heard about my troubles while signing contracts for kitchen renovations or bathroom remodels. I'd sold our house, too many memories in those walls, and bought a smaller place closer to downtown. Just 2 bedrooms, but with a workshop out back where I could spend evenings building furniture no one had ordered. Tables, chairs, bookshelves. Creating something solid from raw materials felt healing in ways I couldn't explain. Friends tried setting me up on dates. I always found reasons to cancel. It wasn't that I didn't want connection. I just couldn't imagine trusting someone that completely again. Then one rainy Tuesday, almost exactly a year after that first anonymous text message, changed everything. I ran into Michelle Wallace at the hardware store. She was in the paint section, studying color swatches with intense concentration. Her hair was shorter now, and she looked younger somehow, lighter. "The blue-gray one," I said before I could stop myself. It would look good with those cabinet handles. She turned, surprised, then smiled with recognition. Aaron Daniels, home improvement expert. That's me. How are you, Michelle? Her smile reached her eyes. Better. Much better. You? For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to lie when I answered. Michelle and I ended up getting coffee after the hardware store. Just two people who'd been through similar storms, comparing notes on rebuilding. She'd moved back to town after a brief stint in Colorado. My sister's great, but I realized running away wasn't the answer, she explained, stirring her latte. This is my home, too. Why should I be the one to leave? I understood completely. There's something powerful about reclaiming your space, your life, after someone tries to take it from you. We talked for hours that day, not about Danielle or Kurt. We mentioned them only briefly, like noting bad weather that had finally passed. Instead, we talked about her job teaching high school art, my latest building projects, books we'd read, places we wanted to visit. Normal conversation. Something I hadn't realized I'd missed so desperately. We should do this again sometime, she said as we were leaving. Not flirtatious, just friendly. It's nice talking to someone who gets it. Gets what? The before and after. How you can be one person and then suddenly become someone else entirely. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. I'd like that. We started meeting every couple of weeks, coffee shops, lunch spots, once for a movie that neither of us particularly enjoyed but gave us plenty to discuss afterward. We were careful to call them hangouts, not dates, both too bruised to risk anything more. Then one evening, as I walked her to her car after dinner, she stopped suddenly. Can I ask you something, Aaron? Sure. Are we friends because of what happened to us, or in spite of it? I considered her question carefully. Maybe both? I wouldn't have met you without all that mess, but I don't think that's why I enjoy your company now. She smiled, relief visible in her eyes. Good answer. As she drove away, I realized something surprising. I was happy. Not completely, not perfectly, but genuinely happy in that moment. And that felt like its own kind of victory. 18 months after the divorce, I ran into Danielle at the grocery store. I'd heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to the next town over, found work as a medical receptionist, the best she could do with her nursing license revoked. But I never expected to see her in the produce section, weighing apples like nothing had changed. She spotted me before I could turn away. For a moment, we just stared at each other across a display of oranges. She looked older, her face lined in ways it hadn't been before. Her hair was different, shorter, its natural brown instead of the highlighted blonde she'd maintained throughout our marriage. Aaron, she said finally, her voice barely audible over the store's background music. I nodded, unsure what to say. What do you say to someone who was once your everything and then became your nightmare? How are you? She asked, setting down her basket. I'm good, I replied, surprised to find I meant it. Business is doing well. She nodded, eyes darting around nervously. I heard. That's great. An awkward silence stretched between us. Shoppers moved around us, oblivious to the history hanging in the air. I'm sorry, she blurted suddenly. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm so sorry, Aaron. I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd come to expect, but all I saw was exhaustion and regret. Why did you do it? I asked, the question that had haunted me for months. Was I really that terrible to live with? She shook her head quickly. No, God, no. You were good to me, always. She twisted her hands together, a nervous habit I remembered well. I think I was bored, and then flattered by Kurt's attention, and then scared of losing everything, so I just kept making worse decisions. Including stealing from sick kids? The words came out sharper than I intended. She flinched. I have no excuse for that. None. Tears filled her eyes. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I became someone I don't recognize. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave her standing there with her regrets. But another part needed this conversation, this closure. I hope it helps, I said finally. The therapy. She wiped her eyes. Are you happy, Aaron? That's all I want to know. I thought about my rebuilt life, my growing business, my evenings with Michelle that had slowly, carefully evolved into something more than friendship. Yes, I told her honestly. I am. She smiled through her tears. Good. You deserve that. As I walked away, I realized the weight I'd been carrying wasn't anger anymore. It was just the past. And finally, I was ready to set it down. 2 years to the day after I received that anonymous text message, I finished renovating my workshop. What started as a simple shed had transformed into a fully equipped woodworking studio, with windows that caught the morning light perfectly. The final touch was a handmade sign above the door, Second Chances Woodworks. Michelle helped me hang it, laughing as we argued over whether it was level. It's perfect, she declared, stepping back to admire our work, just like the craftsman. I pulled her close, still amazed that this was my life now, that happiness had found me again when I least expected it. Our relationship had developed slowly, cautiously. Both of us carried scars that made us careful. But there was something powerful about being with someone who understood exactly what you'd lost and what you'd survived. I have something for you, I told her, leading her inside the workshop. On my workbench sat a small wooden box, the cherry wood polished to a warm glow. She opened it carefully. Inside was a key. Aaron, it's to the front door, if you want it. My heart hammered in my chest. No pressure, just an option. She looked from the key to me, her expression serious. Are you sure? After everything? I understood her hesitation. We'd both learned the hard way how quickly certainty could crumble. I'm not sure about much in this life, I admitted, but I'm sure about how I feel when I'm with you. And I'm sure that I want to build something real, something honest this time. She closed her hand around the key, tears brightening her eyes. Yes, but on one condition. Name it. We take it one day at a time. No rushing, no pressure. Just us figuring it out together. I smiled, relief and joy washing through me. That sounds perfect. That night, as we sat on our back porch watching the sunset, I realized something profound. Sometimes the things that break you open are the very things that let the light in. 5 years have passed since that day in court when Michelle Wallace walked in and changed everything. 5 years of rebuilding, healing, and finding my way back to myself. Looking back now, I can see the entire journey with a clarity that wasn't possible when I was in the middle of it. People often ask if I regret those 15 years with Danielle. It's a complicated question. Do I regret loving someone who ultimately betrayed me? Do I regret building a life that crumbled beneath my feet? The truth is, I don't. Those years weren't wasted. They were lessons. Hard, painful lessons about trust, about paying attention to the quiet warnings we often ignore, about the difference between loving someone and truly knowing them. Michelle and I got married last spring. A small ceremony in her sister's backyard, just close friends and family. No elaborate vows or flashy displays. We both wanted something real this time. Something built on honesty rather than illusion. We bought a house together, a fixer-upper that needed love and patience to restore. Kind of like us, I guess. Every weekend we'd tackle another project, tearing down old wallpaper, sanding floors, painting rooms in colors we choose together. There's something healing about physically rebuilding a space while emotionally rebuilding your life. I still run into Danielle occasionally. Our town isn't big enough to avoid it completely. The last time, she was with a man I didn't recognize. They were laughing over coffee at the diner downtown. She looked happy, and surprisingly, I was glad for her. Not because I've forgotten what she did, but because holding on to anger was only hurting me. Kurt moved away after everything fell apart. I heard he's working at a medical supply company 2 states over. Michelle received a formal apology letter from him last year, part of his therapy apparently. She read it once, then burned it in our fire pit. Some chapters need to stay closed, she said, and I couldn't agree more. The hospital rebuilt their charity fund. Michelle and I donate to it every year, an act of reclamation that feels important to both of us, turning something painful into something good. As for that surprise witness moment, the shock on Danielle's face when Michelle walked into the courtroom, I don't think about it much anymore. It doesn't bring the satisfaction I once thought it would. Because revenge isn't really about making someone else suffer. It's about reclaiming your own power. And that's what I've learned through all of this. True power isn't found in getting even. It's found in moving forward, in building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed, in choosing happiness despite having every reason to be bitter. If this story of justice and redemption resonated with you, subscribe for more powerful stories of overcoming betrayal. The courtroom was silent that day, but my mind was louder than any gavel. I could feel every heartbeat like a hammer pounding inside my chest. My lawyer turned slightly toward me and whispered, "Be ready." I didn't know then how those 2 words would define the next chapter of my life. Be ready, not for revenge, but for rebuilding, not for justice, but for joy. Revenge didn't give me back what I lost, but it gave me back myself. And in the end, that was worth everything.